Hello, Jonny Long here with another advert for you. Now just be thankful I'm not trying to sell you ketones or subscriptions to some mental health app. Anyway, the reason I'm not here selling you any of that stuff is because I've got something much better and much cheaper, which actually helps us keep those sorts of ads at bay. We're running our $1 promotion again during this Tour de France, which means you can sign up for just $1 or £1 or €1 and access all of our articles and member-only podcasts for a month. Support independent cycling journalism. Ensure these are the only sorts of ads you hear on our podcast or see on our site. Join the movement in this little corner of the internet. Come on. You're presumably listening to this podcast of your own free will, maybe even enjoying it. Let's dare to hope. I understand if you've been on the fence about signing up for yet another subscription. So what we're trying to do is tease you into it, lure you, and once you're in and you're all warm and nice, you'll never want to leave. That's the name of this capitalist game. Don't resist it. Come on home. So visit escapecollective.com/TDF to take up this special limited time offer. $1, escapecollective.com/TDF. What else can you actually buy for $1 these days? With inflation, that dollar is just going to keep becoming worth less and less, so you might as well spend it now.
Welcome back to the Escape Collective Tour Daily Podcast, everybody. I'm Caley Fretz. We're on the Promenade des Anglais for the finale of the 2024 Tour de France. Today, the final time trial. The first time the Tour de France has ended somewhere other than Paris, and the first time we've had a final day time trial since 1989, the famous Greg LeMond-Fignon year. And, well, Jonny, set the scene for me.
We're currently all fanning ourselves with pink fans because we've managed to sneak our way into the sort of EF Tour de France wrap party. So just out there is the course, and every time a rider goes past, there's a little cheer, there's a big TV. It's like a cocktail bar that the team have taken over. We have an old friend of the podcast, Mikey Better, sitting just out of sight,
Fedora
out of
Mike.
mind over there.
Of legend.
Yeah, it's a pretty good way to end the tour, to be honest. I mean, it's 1,000 degrees, but it's great. I couldn't be happier with how it's turned out.
So, Tadej Pogačar is going to win this Tour de France.
Well,
he hasn't actually gone
he
yet.
He hasn't set off yet.
But he's going to win this Tour de France. And I think that throws up lots of questions. I think it throws up lots of interesting kind of storylines for the sport and for this tour and beyond. I want to start with the big one. Should he go do the Vuelta?
Yes.
Should Pogačar go do the Vuelta in, 3 weeks' time?
Yes.
He said 99% no.
Which means 1% yes. That's how those things work.
I think
we were talking about this last night, and we were saying that it's a chance to really make history, do something that's never been done before. And why would you not take that opportunity over, maybe you take a couple of years of your career, but it's worth it.
And as we were discussing on some mountain, it was at Isola de Mil, we were saying that this is someone who really does think about the records.
Yeah.
He's an absolute killer, and if he wants the history books to be covered in the name Pogačar. So why wouldn't he do it if he has the legs for it? We don't know how he feels, but by all accounts, he's looking pretty good and feeling pretty good.
Yeah, we haven't really seen him in real pain yet at any point in the tour. And if he's beaten everyone else apart from Jonas Vingegaard and Remco Evenepoel, who won't be at the Vuelta, if he's beaten everyone else by 10 minutes, then surely the Vuelta would... Well, maybe it would be actually the closest Grand Tour of the year that the Pogačar would take on. I don't know.
Well, we'll have Roglic back. It'll be a Slovenian,
Is he going to do it?
Slovenian matchup.
That's how he recovers from a disappointing tour, isn't it?
Sebastian Kuss.
Sebastian Kuss will be there. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point in time, the Vuelta looks like a Roglic v. Kuss battle, which is interesting, I think, particularly in light of the way that everything went down last year, right? Like, you could very much make an argument that Roglic maybe could have won last year's Vuelta. I know the American fans out there will not want to hear that, but I think there's a pretty good argument for that, and they get to rehash it this year.
Right. A Sepp Kuss versus Primož Roglic battle for the second year in a row.
Yeah. Well, and then if you throw Pogačar in there, it does get pretty interesting. And absent absent Pogačar, I mean, UAE probably won't really try to do much of anything at the Vuelta because, like, normally you'd send a Domestique to go give them their heyday, right? But, like, are you going to send Yates? I mean, he just did the tour. Are you, like, Almeida and Ayuso? Probably Ayuso because he left a week in or so.
Unless Moo can be believed and the politics have gone bad and Ayuso's no longer in favour of UAE. I mean, we're not going to believe an internet dude.
Look who's in the hot seat right now.
Lenny Martinez in the hot seat.
Lenny Martinez in the hot seat.
Love it.
Absolutely love it.
Good for him.
It's like a hot sofa for him.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a hot seat now. Yeah.
Is anybody going to argue against Pogačar going to the Vuelta?
Okay. Mikey would, but he's taking a. Oh, he's asking for the mic.
He's put his hand up for the mic
It's
and then he's
Michael Metter.
withdrawn it.
Michael Metter? What do you think? Michael, what do you think?
I missed this whole rigmarole of the pod 2 years ago where Mikey would reach for the mic and then second guess himself and not do it, and then we'd be in this sort of tug of war for 2 minutes until we moved on. Mikey, so the point you're making is you think it's bad for one rider to dominate the Grand Tours in this fashion. You think it's bad for competition, bad for the sport.
Unbelievable, I think, is really the implication there.
Well,
less believable.
I don't think Mikey's coming from that point, but that's another angle you could take, is that, such dominance over doing the Tour Giro double wasn't believable before Pogačar did it, really. Froome didn't manage it.
Yeah.
So triple would, be quite something. I guess the argument against is you could say if it does really mess him up and then we lose top form Pogačar for a couple years, then that means we have 2 more very boring Tours de France potentially with just a Jonas Vingegaard and no one able to match him.
We have breaking news.
I saw the video.
We need to take a
Great.
brief respite from the discussion of legacy, etc. Joshua Robinson of the Wall Street Journal. First of all, I didn't introduce anybody other than Jonny. Welcome.
Thank
What
you.
have you just shown us on your phone?
A truly incredible video. One that really will change how we think about the legacy of a great rider. Thibaut Pinot is at the Tour on a bike, and I think he's been cycling around the Alps for a few days. In fact, quite a lot. But we've just seen a video of him with a tourtel in his hand.
Yeah, that's the key detail.
Exactly. He's shirtless, wearing his cycling sunglasses, and riding a Lime bike, just as we have.
He's like every other dude riding around Battersea Park in London in the summer. Everyone looks like that dude. Like Thibaut Pinot, apart from Tourtel,
And your mate's been in the gym.
Yeah,
you think?
He's looking yoked.
Since the lean and mean days of the Tour de France for him, been in the gym.
Okay.
Looking good.
It's the goat farmer workout.
He's gone for the lemon tourtel, which I think is a good choice.
That's a traditionalist choice, isn't it?
It's the second best choice.
No?
Pinot respects cycling heritage.
Tourtel heritage.
I want to talk rivalry.
Oh.
So we said before the Tour de France started that it had the potential to be amazing because both of the sort of leading candidates for yellow were coming in off the back of some issue, or even if it's self-made, right? So Pogačar came off the Giro, and Vingegaard came off, obviously, his horrible crash. Now, I'm not equating those two things. Riding the Giro is not as bad as sitting in a hospital for 2 weeks with a collapsed lung. But they both had something going on. If we look ahead to next year, based on what we saw this summer, what we saw Vingegaard was able to do, which was incredible considering where he was 3 months ago, do we look ahead to next year thinking this is going to be a tighter battle than we've seen?
Well, I hope so. I mean, we said earlier that a couple weeks ago that Jonas Vingegaard and Visma Bike are doing the Tour de France on hard mode this year. You've got Vingegaard off serious injury. You've got half of the squad that they actually wanted to bring. I mean, they couldn't have come into it any more, hamstrung. Whereas UAE, we talk about Pogačar racing the Giro before. He probably raced half of the Giro, and half of it was sort of training camp. At times, the tours look like that for him as well. So we hope that Vingegaard returns to the level and we have a very even battle. There was Daniel Friebe shared the stat of the total Tour de France time since 2021 between Pogačar and Vingegaard, and it's 22 seconds on general classification between them.
That was from ChatGPT, though, so
I think someone in the replies did
your
the
math may vary.
Themselves. Apparently, it's 22 seconds. Oh, an EF rider nearly rode over a bird there on the course, which would have maybe brought the vibes of the party down a touch.
We were talking earlier about the last time we had this kind of back and forth between two riders.
Yeah.
So I was looking back through the list of winners of Tour de France, and it looks like the last time where both guys had at least won twice, really the back and forth was the early 80s between Hinault and Fignon, where you have Hinault winning in 81 and 82. You have Fignon in 83 and 84, and Hinault comes back to win in 85.
I mean, that's the last one I can think of. We were
exactly
sitting here
this
before.
pattern, by the way.
Yeah, before we hit record, we're like, when was the last time we got this? Because this is actually pretty incredible. The fact that you had 2 and 2, now 1, and then we don't know what'll happen next year, right? And it's all the way back to the 80s. It's that sort of Fignon, and then a little bit of Greg LeMond thrown in there, right? Like.
Does that make Greg LeMond Remco Evenepoel?
Well, LeMond didn't win until 86.
Yeah.
So he came after those initial skirmishes.
Right. Okay. But it's a good reminder that like he kind of came out of nowhere in 86, right? And not out of nowhere. That's not totally true, but he wasn't a hot favorite in 86.
Yeah. Change happens before you realize it.
Yeah, and so who's it going to be, right? Like we always talk about this like it's just going to be these two guys for the next decade, and history shows us someone else will show up, right? Someone else will be the next freak show that drops into this duo and makes it a trio. And I don't think we saw anybody in this year's tour that would show that. But if you go back and you look at like Roglic's first tour, for example, you wouldn't necessarily have seen that from him either. So, is it a Lenny Martinez? Is it somebody else that's currently in the peloton that we're going to see pop in the next year or two to start to take these guys to task?
Would you remember when Egan Bernal won his tour in 2019, and then all the talk then was like, he's gonna break the record.
Well, because he was like 22 or something.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah.
It just goes to show like humans are the worst at like predicting what will actually happen.
And we knew after the crash that he'd never be the same again.
Yeah, but even before,
happen,
if you were to say that he would have been on the same level as Vingegaard and Pogačar is incredibly tough. Victor Campenaerts has just finished. Ryan Gibbons just finished. This is a great way to watch the final stage. How
fantastic.
do we feel about a competitive final stage of the tour compared to the Champs-Élysées? It's nice to change it up a bit, but there is something about not having those laps of the Champs, which is...
There's a lot of riders not trying right now.
Yeah, of course.
There's a lot, like a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Those laps of the Champs are quite nice because you see the whole peloton together one last time. You get the sort of the colors, the vibrations, in front of the Arc de Triomphe. You also get the insane final laps of the caravan where they decide we're going to open up the engine and see what these babies can do. And suddenly the fruit mobiles are going hell for leather on the cobblestones of the Champs-Élysées. And it's like, oh my God, the cherries are going to tip over.
Should we take this down a slight tangent and explain what we saw of the caravan today? Because that was
brief
special.
tangent. Then we're bringing it back.
Iain, the floor is yours.
So the press room today was in a kind of industrial hangar exposition.
Yeah, exposition center sort of thing, yeah.
So there was this big kind of hot airless room behind where the press center was. And we arrived just as every single vehicle of the caravan arrived, wheeled their way in, and started winding down. After 3 weeks on the road, we saw all of the caravan vehicles getting loaded onto trucks. We saw some of them getting stripped of their vinyl coverings. So we had Orangina, and that was just getting all of the Orangina.
Did it make you sad?
Sad and happy.
You look elated. I've never seen you happier, to be honest. You were just skipping around gleefully.
Did you tickle the leek's whiskers?
I didn't actually, because it had already been loaded. I've done that already, but a couple of times.
They've been tickled.
They've been tickled. It seemed undignified to tickle them again.
Sorry,
when it was at rest.
It's a bit loud in here, so I might miss this. Did you mention the crying amongst the colleagues? Yes.
Okay, so there was big sort of last day of school camp energy, last day of summer vacation energy, where all of the different caravan folk were saying their goodbyes to each other. So there was a group of deeply horny Haribo ambassadors, and all of them were just
that's just you projecting maybe a little bit.
No, I'm not editorializing here.
They also did like a little like team huddle while dancing around in a circle thing before breaking off into the slightly horny
into their separate canoodles.
So that was the summer of everyone's life.
Yeah,
I'll always remember this.
And now everyone will have to go and get tested.
Josh Bortner, how are you?
I am great. How are you guys?
We're great. Unfortunately, Ronan isn't here, or else we'd ask you tech things about the time trial today.
I turn a corner and there's a podcast happening in the middle of this party. How are you guys pulling this off?
Well, we got to do one more. This is the last one. What are your? You enjoy this year's tour?
Oh, it's been a great tour. Certainly, obviously, sitting here with EF, the Carapaz and Polka Dot, and the tech were not a ton of new stuff, but really the adoption of some of the higher tech coming, let's say lower down, but through more teams, more French teams with higher tech is only a good thing. The leveling sort of the playing field.
Can I throw some kudos your way? So you and I did some sort of like paddock walk. It must have been like 5 years ago now. And you said that by 2025, basically the entire peloton would be on tubeless. And I scoffed in your face. And you're right.
I don't remember that, but I will take the kudos and say, like, I'm clearly super, super on top of things and smarter than I thought I was because I don't remember saying. But yeah, I always say it's directionality with these things, right? Like, I don't know when it's going to actually happen, but the future clearly was going to be tubeless. And you talk to the tire manufacturers, where are they spending their money? It's all tubeless. And yeah, I mean, we even have the small, lower budget, French, Portuguese, Italian, they've all gone tubeless. I was a little nervous that would never happen, but it's happened.
Well, we're going to do a whole sort of tech wrap once Ronan finally gets back. He was, he took the vomit train to Monaco.
Yep.
And is slowly making his way back at this point. But Josh, thank you for hanging out in the pod for a minute here.
Thrilled to have run into you guys. So enjoy the rest of your podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring it back in.
Well,
that was a nice segue away from talking about the diseases of the caravan.
Just really quickly, that was Josh Bortner. He currently runs Silka, but he's been in and around the bike industry for a very long time. He is sort of like one of these optimization guys, right? Like marginal gains optimization guys. And I think he actually runs a podcast called the Marginal Gains Podcast. Huh. Really smart guy. Like I just alluded to, kind of predicted where the sport was going technically a long time ago and has proven to be correct. So we like Josh a lot. Anyway, like I said, when Ronan gets here, we will do a bit more tech stuff because it's a time trial. We will do tech stuff. That may end up in like a special episode after the race finishes off. We'll see how long this one goes, but just so everyone out there knows, it's coming.
Yeah.
Let's return to the bike race.
Yeah. That was all the caravan stuff. It was great. If you want to see a photo of it or video of it, it's on our Instagram. So look that up.
There was a lot of crying.
A lot of crying.
It was great. I don't think we've done enough caravan stuff, to be honest. But we did see Koshinu saying their goodbyes to each other, and there was not a dry eye in the house.
There was not.
And then we walked down amongst them and took pictures of them at their most vulnerable.
It was sort of like the start of a Tour de France version of Grease, the movie, where Sandy and Danny are saying goodbye, but then they'll like bump into each other again, like at the Vuelta in a month's time.
And also, I know you want to go back to the bike race, Caley. I respect the hell out of you for that. But I would also say that 3 weeks into the Tour de France, when they have finished their duties, we entered the hall and there was still music absolutely blasting and people dancing. I don't know how they have the energy for it.
They'd not had enough yet somehow.
I have a
still
theory.
Dancing to.
I have a theory.
And back to the bike race. Sorry,
back
guys.
To the bike race.
I am
no, that
concerned.
was
light and dark.
A worthwhile examination of the human existence.
And the depths to which it can go.
Brief interlude. So, first of all, thank you to everybody who played our fantasy Tour de France game. We had thousands and thousands and thousands of you playing. And I was just reminded of this because Derek Bouchard-Hall just sat down next to us, and he is the CEO of POC, who provided a helmet, I think, for every stage this whole race. So huge thank you to POC, huge thank you to Factor, who provided the sort of grand prize, an entire frame set, and Black Ink, wheel manufacturer. Thank you to all three of the awesome sponsors of our fantasy competition this year. Wow. We really appreciate you.
Another thing on the fantasy competition, what I'll be looking for today is that my favourite ever name I've seen in a fantasy competition, Wout van Vaart, has moved back up to 5th before today.
That's huge for Van Vaart.
Huge. Absolutely huge. If he wins or retains his top 5, I'm sure we'll be able to hear the celebrations from Nice.
We were really pulling for Wout van Aert because we liked having Wout van Aert on our homepage.
Yeah. All
It's
the
got a
other
real
serious
good-
headlines.
As a name, it has some real nice mouthfeel to it.
Yeah, it really does. Gross, but yes, agreed.
All right, I want to step all the way back to the beginning of the bike race. I want you guys to put on your little time travel hats and head all the way to Rimini, where we had a dinner that definitely happened in a town that for sure exists. And
That was so long ago.
It was
that
so
I
long
left
ago.
the tour and came back.
Yes. Yes.
But I want to take you guys back to Roman Bardet taking yellow jersey in his final Tour de France, in the first stage of his final Tour de France, and how fantastic that was. I think an EF rider just went by. I think that's what that was.
I think Roman Bardet's opening stage victory in yellow jersey just really set the tone for the rest of the racing, where it was opportunistic but planned out, and it felt like every victory sort of meant, I'd say like 90% of the victories really meant a lot and like fed greater narratives. I think Kit actually mentioned in our group chat yesterday about how it feels that the actual victories have been shared by so few riders and teams this year, which maybe that's a recency bias thing, but it does certainly feel that it's been really concentrated.
So it's an interesting thing because I was chatting with Jack Haig about this, and I feel like the narrative in the last couple of years has been all the breaks are making it, right? Like, I mean, think back to Casper Asgreen denying Jasper Philipsen last year, that sort of thing, right? And then this year we saw this really odd lack of breakaways in general. But then on the days where they thought the break would really work, where it wasn't doomed, a much more concerted effort and a much more intentional effort from the riders that were going after these breakaways. And it feels like a bit of optimization of the tour, basically. So even teams like Total Energies that would normally just, and we talked about this early in the race, that would just stick somebody in the doomed French breakaway.
Yeah, like Jordan
We weren't
Gigat.
seeing that, but then they also get a stage win, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anthony Turgis wins a stage of the Tour de France, which is a absolutely massive thing for them. So it's maybe a little bit more of a gamble because, if Turgis had lost that sprint, then you've got nothing.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to commend them for going for it, I guess.
Well, and also for years, they have got nothing anyway.
Yeah.
So give it a shot. Roll the dice.
Hugely handsome Wout van Aert on the screen.
Yeah, he's a dour, rugged, good-looking man.
He's got a certain brooding charisma to him, doesn't he?
He does. He always has, yeah. But look, this is the thing we're talking about with you never know how long dynasties or, these rivalries last. Wout van Aert, potentially you can see him never winning another Tour de France stage. That's just how these things happen. Do you agree, disagree? I mean...
Also, I think, for so long we had this Van Aert, Van der Poel rivalry. If you sort of put them side by side, it's not really a rivalry.
No.
It's a little bit Yankees-Mets. I say this as a Mets fan.
Oh no! What? You're
Jason
you're
Gay
the
was
tour.
furious that you didn't reference a Mets player the other night. So
I know. I'm
well
correcting
done.
that now.
Josh, you're at the Tour de France in Nice. We've got great seats, and yet you're still being like a depressed Mets fan. Truly knows no bounds.
It clings to you like the yellow jersey to Tadej Pogačar. Like the seamstresses have been in to make sure that the skin suit
You on your
fits.
sofa just slumped in it, just like, God damn.
Last thing on Bardet, before we sort of move on to maybe some mind games chat. So there was a great interview from him at the top of the climb yesterday on Saturday, and Josh, you helped me translate it because it was very mumbly. I couldn't get about half of it. I just put a story up about this. He's one of cycling's most eloquent guys, I think, and I kind of hope that he sticks around. I kind of hope that he, makes himself felt, his presence felt at the Tour de France to going forward, because like Thibaut Pinot, we kind of always knew he was going to go back, hang out on his farm, show up in Nice with no shirt on. Like it's a very Thibaut Pinot thing to do. But I hope Roman Bardet ends up on French TV or something, because he adds a lot to the sport.
That seems to be the future for Roman Bardet. I feel like there's a job at ASO or France Television already, like with his name on it.
What if he became Junior ASO? And I just texted him one day. I texted Junior ASO one day, and he responded, "Bonjour, it's Romain."
It runs in the family.
That's true.
His sister was a junior ASO.
His sister was
Wow.
like 8 years ago or so. Yeah,
It was
a while.
A while ago.
It's a long time ago.
Do we think that maybe Johan Alfredo, who's the former pro, current France TV analyst, maybe he feels Roman Bardet come for his job, and that's why he was huffing his massive vape at dinner last night in sheer frustration and anxiety at what the future could hold?
Bardet is almost, honestly, he's so eloquent and he's so thoughtful. He could be bigger than Johan Alfredo. He could be like, I don't know if I have no insight into his thinking about his future, but he could be a future director of the Tour de France. He has that look about him. He has that respect for the heritage.
But he has
He
also
does.
said that he wants to do gravel, right?
Johan Alfredo?
No.
Roman Bardet.
Yeah.
Roman Bardet wants to, did you just think we were talking about Johan Alfredo being the future
Yeah, sorry,
director of the Tour de France?
I watched the TV first couple seconds because I was watching David Gaudu do the time trial without
Imagine
bothering to
if
put the
this
time trial helmet
entire
on.
conversation had been
Wait, what
memorializing
did you-
Johan Alfredo's
What
legacy.
did you say about Roman Bardet?
Huh?
What did you just say about Roman Bardet?
Roman
He's
Bardet
spoken-
for Tour de France race director.
Well, maybe, yeah, but he wants to be a gravel guy.
Does he?
Yeah.
Why?
Wow, we'll see.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I mean, these guys, they just can't hang it up sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
He could mean that in a more casual, I just like riding my bike and I will do some of that.
We've
Sam.
already seen Pierre Roland around here as an ASO.
Yes.
He was on my flight to Italy from Paris, like whenever it was, 8 years ago when the tour started. But Romain Bardet is really a luxury Pierre Roland.
Yes.
Okay, we're done with the deep cut French interlude.
Yeah. I like that though. Oh, is Harold Tejada about to take the hot seat off Lenny Martinez? It looks like it. He is.
Oh,
Ronan's best mate.
I mean, honestly, the fact that Lenny Martinez held on that long is quite impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tejada has had a very easy couple days because he's just been shepherding Mark Cavendish. And so he's just been riding at Mark Cavendish pace up all these mountains.
Although, to be fair, there are only, I think, 3 or 4 people left in Astana, so any shepherding that he is doing is amplified by the lack of the other
That's
ones.
true. That is very true.
We'll get into the further depths of this in After Dark or a bonus episode we'll discuss later. But we actually managed to cycle past on line bikes Mark Cavendish as he finished his time trial, his final ever stage Tour de France.
Yeah.
But more importantly than that, he wore his Oakley sunglasses underneath his visor today, which
the vibe.
is quite the way to go out on a historic Tour de France career.
Got to get that bonus.
Gotta
But
get
I also
that check.
question how much eye protection can one man possibly need? Like, what's he expecting to happen out there?
You never know.
Safety first, not safety
We
worst.
kind of moved on quite quickly from Cav last night. Like we kind of just crapped on him and then moved on. And I don't think I ever got to actually say the important bit, which is that we have a huge amount of respect for what he's done
of course.
here.
Yeah.
And he's the greatest of all time. He's the greatest of all time. And with that comes some somewhat unsavory personality characteristics sometimes.
Yeah.
And I guess the other very important thing to mention is it feels like he's grown up a lot in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And we joke about his friendship tour, and bits of it feel a little bit put on. But he is also
Some of it is
genuinely
genuine.
much nicer than he was 10 years ago.
Yeah. I think he's, above all, been an intriguing character in the sport. And there is nothing wrong with being a better sports person than you are a human, because if you are that good a sports person, it's hard to be a better human than you are a sports person.
That's very true.
You know?
Yeah.
So wise.
Yeah.
Sorry?
So wise.
So wise. I want to talk mind games.
Okay.
So again, we're gonna get our little time machines here and think back to the start of the Tour de France when we didn't know what was about to happen, and back to Visma saying things like, "Wow," or I should say Jonas Vingegaard saying things like, "I'm just happy to be here." I think we can believe that stuff now. It felt like mind games at the time, but I think he was just being honest based on what we've seen the last couple weeks.
Yes. But also he has finished second.
Yeah.
So they would have seen the numbers he was doing, right? But it was whether he would be able to last.
Yeah, but like I said at the start, and why the sort of getting better in the third week thing never made any sense to me is that I'm sure his sort of short-term power was probably about what it needed to be at the start of the tour. I think if it wasn't, they wouldn't have started him, right? Like if he was 20 watts off in his 20-minute power, they wouldn't have started him. And we saw from stage 2 that into Bologna that the power was there. He was on Pogacar's wheel instantly. And kind of as predicted, the durability was the issue. And so I'm not too surprised he faded in that last week. And I don't think Visma had any real way of knowing what was going to happen in that last week. They were hoping for what Jack Haig talked about, which is, he's a freak show. He recovers really fast. He's going to be able to actually get faster during the tour. But that was even a step too far for Jonas Vingegaard.
I think the more interesting mind game component has been this sort of willingness of both teams to try and either like take revenge in quote marks on the other, because we've had this big back and forth and taking chunks out of each other any possibility, that seeing Pogačar really want to deliver like a message to Visma Lease Bike and Jonas Vingegaard to like, or it's already like, if you wouldn't do this stuff if you weren't thinking about like the years to come and the rivalry as a defining part of your career and wanting to like prove yourself as above your rival.
I think an interesting thing going into next year is, there's lots of people trying to like guess what the power outputs were on some of these climbs, like Plateau de Bay. A lot of people trying to guess what those power outputs were. Visma has the advantage that they know what Vingegaard's power was. So they know exactly what he did. They know how much time he lost. They can therefore calculate exactly what Pogačar did. There's only 2 teams that can really do that right now, right? They know exactly what Pogačar did. And so they will know at what level they need to get Jonas Vingegaard ahead of next year's tour. And I think that is relevant.
At what level to get Jonas Vingegaard to beat 2024 Tadej Pogačar?
Yeah.
Who knows what 2025 Tadej Pogačar is?
Yeah.
Terrifying.
On the current trajectory, yes, terrifying. It's intriguing. I don't know. The mind games, I think it's maybe something that's been lacking. Like,
I feel like we have 2, not just athlete rivals, we have team rivals now.
Which is fun.
Like, we have Richard Pluga versus Gianetti. We have Pogačar versus Vingegaard. I think it's like the 2 teams are
Grisha-Niemann versus
Andre Houtman.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. They're too close too often to be anything but bitter rivals, and they try to pretend to be nice
and look at each other, yeah.
But they're not going to be nice to each other anymore. No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh well. No more shaking hands when one falls down.
This reminds me, I'm just going to take on a slight F1 tangent, but
Please
it's in
do.
the Red Bull Mercedes rivalry that's kind of defined the sport over the past few years.
Yeah.
Or it did before the kind of Red Bull dynasty. Toto Wolff, the team boss at Mercedes, made every employee at Mercedes print out a picture of their counterpart at Red Bull, so that they knew who they were competing against, who they needed to be better than every day.
Wow.
And that's the kind of thing we need more of in cycling.
Yes.
That's why we have pictures of the cycling podcast hanging up in all of our offices.
Yeah. Just
Richard
Abraham and Lionel wake up in the night and they're just there. Very spooky. Could be worse. Could have had Mitch Docker's face looking at me.
That's true.
Immediately hand over your wallet.
We kid. Last thing here before we wrap up this Tour de France. Again, we're going to have some TT stuff with Ronan either later this episode or maybe later this week. We also have an After Dark segment and the award show for members only. But the last thing we want in sort of the main pod here, can you believe Tadej Pogačar? We don't love this framing necessarily. And I think that the reason we don't love it is, we are journalists and reporters first and foremost, and we like to deal in things we can confirm and things we know.
Well, but
we've also been fans of the sport for a long time.
It's also an important topic because whenever I chat to people about the Tour who don't follow cycling, it is the first question I get asked about all of them. It's still the way that the sport is defined amongst the general public, and we've seen this Tour de France, not in particular, the past few, where we have seen some incredible performances, right? Yeah. Which then lends itself to asking these questions, which are important. And the thing is, a lot of the times, we don't actually get answers from the team or the teams and the people involved that are detailed as to be explanatory, because they're competing in the sport where you have your competitive advantages where you can't reveal what is making your ride tick. If it's, for instance, the carbon monoxide rebreathing, which maybe, don't know how big of a gain it is in terms of the whole sort of modern preparation, but it's important to at least not broach the topic, but mention it and acknowledge it. Can we believe Tadej Pogačar? It's one you don't want to say yes or no to, is it?
It's one we can't say yes or no to.
No.
But we actually don't know. We actually don't know. And I think the response to some of the carbon rebreathing stuff has been quite interesting, right? Like we the ways in which teams have addressed it, the ways that they have explained what they are doing, what they aren't doing. It's one of those things. Like I think I mentioned this in the episode that Ronan and I did, but one of the reasons we wanted to write that story is because we felt it was really important to open the conversation. There are people associated with professional cycling teams actively researching whether this is a feasible, whether not rebreathing, but inhalation for performance is feasible, right? It's being looked at. And so the sport needs to have a conversation around it. And it was interesting to bring that conversation to teams, right? Yeah. Like some, I think, handled it quite well. Some handled it somewhat more confusingly. But it puts it all out in the open, and that's where these things need to be happening.
I would say Pogačar himself, I have more faith in than maybe his team. I think the reason why every time a rider says this is a new generation, and I think maybe others are prone to scoffing at that, is because it's the same dudes a lot of the time involved in the sport that were involved previously. And what you're trusting then is that they've completely changed their approach. So,
one of the interesting things to me that came out of it was it was something that Marin Zeman said, who's sort of one of the heads of Visma. And when we first brought this to him, Iain and I sort of sat with him and stood with him in front of their team bus and had about a 15-minute conversation. And one of the things that he seemed most concerned about was just the fact that us writing this story meant that everyone else would know that this exists.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how to take that necessarily. But it was interesting to me that that's the first place his head went, was like, we're using this for this XYZ purpose.
Yeah.
We're using it to make our altitude, we're using the measurement, I should say, rebreathing measurement, to make our altitude training more effective and efficient. And we don't want anyone else doing that.
Yeah. Look, I think to be clearer on saying, can you believe, can you trust? Definitely some of the more hardcore elements that previous generations saw, you'd be really shocked if they existed. But now I think it's a battle in the grey areas. And the question is often not one of... There comes an EF rider. It's a question of grey areas, and it's not one of legality. It's one of sort of ethics, maybe morals, and one of what we want the sport to be, rather than following set in stone rules. Maybe it's more the spirit of what people want the sport to be.
Well, you take it all the way back to the Sky era, right? And the only thing that's sort of been confirmed is the somewhat questionable use of TUEs.
Yeah.
Right. There's also a box of testosterone that showed up, but for various legal reasons, probably not best talk too much in detail on that one, because it's all just sort of fuzzy and up in the air, and Richard Freeman never showed up at court and things like that. But that whole era has now in our minds come to be defined by this use of a gray area. Yeah. And our assumption around cycling going forward is that the best teams will continue to operate in these gray areas, and I'm not really sure you can blame them, right? You're trying to win professional sport. It's not illegal. Aren't you going to chase it down? Or aren't you going to at least find out what's going on? I mean, that's basically what we're seeing right now with this. Yeah. So I guess to return to the can we believe Pogačar, or can we believe Vingegaard, or can we believe any of these riders? I think, the official Escape Collective Tour Daily stance is we have no idea.
Okay, that works. That works.
And if we didn't have an idea, we wouldn't be scared to say it.
We would tell you, yeah. Don't worry about that.
Yep. All right.
Instead of doing the awards, Tour de France awards, as an After Dark, why don't we record it and save it to go out tomorrow? Because I feel like we're all going to have to taper gently off of this Tour de France. So having an extra little bonus Monday thing.
Yeah, it might not be super long, but it'll be an extra episode tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, we are thinking of the listeners here. We don't want to rip the rug out from under your feet after 3 weeks solid of being your ear friends.
Should we say our goodbyes then for this tour to
you
the
guys should probably say your goodbyes.
Okay. Thanks for another cracking Tour de France to you gentlemen around here, to Ronan who's not here, to everyone we met along the way, to everyone who's been popping up in the Discord. Once again, it was an absolute delight, and at various points along the way, it hits you that like this is really quite fun and a real privilege. Thank you for signing up. Thank you for being signed up. And
Please stay signed up.
Please stay signed up. And I think
or else we won't be back next year.
We've also realised we need to figure out a way to sort of bring this dynamic to you more regularly than just every July. So stay tuned for ruminations on that. But yes, massive thanks.
Yeah, it is a privilege to be able to do what we do and to do it for you guys, the listeners, because it's quite special and unique to be able to cover bike racing in the way that we want to cover it, as silly as it can sometimes be. As much as it might sound like we're losing our minds sometimes, it is really heartening.
We are.
Which we are, to be absolutely clear. No, but it's very heartening to have people recognize that is something that they want and put up with our self-indulgent bullshit. It's really nice. Thank you.
Joshua Robinson of the Wall Street Journal, thank you so much for joining us this
Josh.
month.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really special. You know, I've done this Tour de France alone a lot before too, and it means a lot to be able to come and join you guys for beers and laughs and sometimes some quite good racing insight.
Not often though.
But in all seriousness, you guys do make everyone who listens to you smarter. You guys know the sport inside out, and it's really a privilege for me to join you guys. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh. All right, let's take a break. Let's come back with Ronan talking tech. Ronan!
Yo!
Welcome back. How was Monaco?
Tightly squeezed.
Yeah, how was the train?
The train, I wasn't even talking about the train, I was just talking about Monaco. The train was a sight to behold. It was a smell to forget. It was
horrible.
nasty.
You texted that, and the rest of us were like, I think we're going to stay in Nice. I think we're going to stay here.
Nice is much nicer.
Roman Bardet is coming across the line right now. Thanking everybody. Final Tour de France. All right, so the reason why you
crossed
went...
the line,
Yeah.
waving to everybody, thanking everybody, final Tour de France. And he finished closer to the leader than he has done in time trials. He took much
That's true. So, Ronan, did you spot anything of interest at the time trial this morning? Because that's why you went to the start.
Not a whole lot, to be honest with you. I mean, there's enough there for a couple of galleries, a couple of interesting little tech bits. Remco had a new wheel that I'm going to go ahead and say it's a new wheel. I'm not certain it's a new wheel because it looks so identical to what he's previously using. And that kind of sets the tone for the rest of it. And that there was plenty of time trial stuff there, but there wasn't anything majorly exciting.
Yeah.
Binyam Girmay's green time trial bike was perhaps the
It was cool color.
Yeah. That was nice.
Did you see the polka dot bike?
I seen a polka dot Super 6 Evo, not a time trial bike. I was hoping they would have a polka dot time trial bike.
And is there a yellow bike?
There's a Colnago time trial bike with yellow decals and a partially yellow saddle. There's a Colnago road bike that is fully yellow. Presumably that's for like a lap of honor or something.
Yeah. You probably do a lap of the promenade, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Plenty of cooling tech, but kind of frustratingly, what most of the teams had done was like parked in such a way that all their tech was heading out the back of the bus, and then you had the length of the bus to the barrier that kept everybody back from their bikes. Giulio Ciccone was riding a road bike, one of the only riders I've seen. Went and asked about that, and it's actually more to do with an injury that he sustained. They know it's not the fastest setup on paper, or even running the numbers. It's slower, but with the injury he's carrying, he couldn't have ridden the time trial bike up the climb. So that was kind of
because you still got to be able to pedal the thing.
So they put clip-on aero bars on it. They put a disc brake on it, a disc wheel on it. But it's a road metal.
Sounds like me racing collegiate time trials.
I mean, it was probably the coolest bike there today.
Any small stuff? Any like kits or anything?
I could not confirm, but I had been told that Victor Campenaerts was going to change the speedplay pedals for the time trial. And I seen him getting delivered a set of speedplay pedals.
Why? Just for
by
aerodynamics?
by a rival team. But I could not spot them on his bike. And I think the mechanics knew what I was trying to find because they took the bike in behind like a closed curtain and shut it off. So, yeah.
So would that just be an aerodynamic thing?
I'm guessing it probably was. He maybe has a set of time trial shoes, aero shoes or something, with speed play cleats, speed play aero pedals. Probably is, yeah.
Well, a somewhat we've already had a time trial this year, so
yeah, and it's one of those as well. I'm now struggling for things to recall, but I know when I sit down tonight and start editing the photos, there are probably at least 2 galleries in this.
Yeah.
I also spent a good part of the day with DC Raymaker from DC Rainmaker, proper celebrity Ray. Everywhere we went, he was getting stopped.
Oh yeah,
yeah, big time celebrity Ray. So
that happens on YouTube.
Good guy also.
Yep, he's great. Big fan of Escape, actually.
Yeah,
big fan. So as we are of him, he is a member. Yeah, a genuine friend of the pod. Genuine friend of the pod.
I've just remembered also now that we're seeing Remco in his skin suit.
Yeah,
I seen the inside of his skin suit. I wasn't inside it, but I seen inside it.
Fur.
It was for some reason they had it pulled inside out, hanging on a clothes hook outside the team bus. Which I don't know if they had to wash it last minute or what, but I'd never seen kits hanging outside a bus. Never mind hanging inside out outside a bus.
Huh.
Maybe it was just recently fitted or something. I don't know.
Is this the equivalent of walking a mile in someone's shoes? You have to wear another time trial skin suit or see the inside of it?
You have to chafe in someone else's suit.
No skid marks?
It looked like a new suit. I'm pretty sure it was new.
He looks so aero. Remco. We're watching him right now come across the TV here. He's an aero man.
I had a conversation with someone this morning who was saying that so we always think the UCI having a problem with the latest aero kit and all, but actually the ASO might have a problem as well. And their particular problem is that, and it's very evident now looking at Remco on TV here, his entire face is covered. And they're like, we don't care about the aero, we don't care about this, that, and the other, but if we can't see the rider's face, that is a problem.
Could be anybody.
Could be anybody. You're just not seeing, you're not getting that connection with the athletes.
Could be Stefan Kung just...
Have you seen Stefan Kung?
Yeah, Stefan Kung, Remco Evenepoel, pretty much the same guy. Only about a foot difference.
At least.
Ben Healy just went by.
I've got a question, Ronan. Either before or after we hear this bit on the pod, we were talking about how it's a shame that we have a number of riders riding their last ever Tour de France stage today looking ridiculous. So you got Simon Geschke in the massive helmet saying goodbye to a great Tour de France career. You've got, Geraint Thomas, Romain Bardet. Do you think this is the point where maybe the marginal gains and performance has gone too far, that that's the final ever time we're gonna see some of these big Tour de France riders ever?
I feel for those riders, yes, I have to admit that. But I'm sorry, I'm willing to sacrifice those guys just to know that Mark Cavendish's potentially perfect Tour de France, winning his 35th stage, breaking the record, was spoiled by the fact that instead of finishing on the Champs-Elysees, he has had to finish on a time trial bike in a skin suit, wearing a time trial helmet.
Did you enjoy the visor and sunglass combo? Did you see that?
I didn't actually see Cav today, so it
was bad.
Sure. Okay.
It was clear visor, underneath, so he could get the sponsor correct.
Oakley sponsor.
Yeah.
Glasses. Okay.
Yep. All right, well, I think that's it from our little time trial wrap. Keep an eye on the website for whatever else Ronan's dug up.
And seeing as I've done it in the after dark, now is probably a good time to say that now is your last chance to sign up for our $1 promo to get a special bonus episode tomorrow. You need to do it. This is your last day that you can sign up for a $1 membership for Escape Collective. And then you'll have us in your ears tomorrow.
Sign up for the Tour de France Femme avec Swift coverage as well. That's coming up. The Tour de France isn't over yet, people.
It's actually true. So the $1 promo ends tomorrow, but then starts up again for the Tour de France Femme, where Abby, Tilda, and Lauren will be doing daily podcasts. We'll have tons and tons of amazing content from that race. And the $1 promo will be back. But more importantly, a lot of you have signed up for this $1 promo already. You got to stay signed up. You got to do that for us, because I'm not kidding when I say, if you like this pod, it won't be here next year if you don't stay signed up. We are entirely funded by our members. We need you to keep doing this. All right, with that, I do believe it's time to head to After Dark.